Oh, my microphone actually does work. This is so unusual. So yeah, we're going to take you out today. We're on the lighthearted topic of metastatic cancer, and then send you out into the world on that. Hi, everybody. Oh my God,
Interpret all the questions for me.
I am so delighted and privileged. As I said earlier today, I really feel like people with metastatic cancer are my tribe, and it's really an honor to be here with you three today, and to know that there are so many other people out in this room today living with metastatic cancer. And for, I think, many of us, that diagnosis comes as a bombshell in our lives. You don't really expect cancer. Oh, there goes the microphone. There it goes. It's gone. Oh, it's back. And you sure don't expect metastatic cancer. And I know when it happened for me, I immediately had like an actual full-blown panic attack. And my oncologist said to me, don't worry, stage 4 is not what it used to be. Which is great when you don't have stage 4 cancer. So I want to introduce the three lovely people here and ask each one of you a little bit about what it was like before you got that diagnosis, what you knew and understood about metastatic stage 4 cancer, what that phrase meant to you, and how it's changed, and what you think now of that diagnosis, living here, alive, doing well on immunotherapy. And I want to start with you, Stephen. Stephen, as you know, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer at age 28. All three people here all four of us have had other treatments before immunotherapy. Some of us have had many. So Stephen, tell us, what did you know about stage 4 cancer, and what did you think when that phrase was first said to you?
As I alluded to earlier when I spoke, I didn't know that there were only 4 stages. I was really pulling for a 5 or a 6. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So when I found out there was stage 4 cancer, of course, the first thing that goes through my head is I'm going to die. And not only am I going to die, I'm probably going to die very soon. And that was really my biggest fear. When I found out, I had been fighting to be diagnosed for an extended amount of time, and no one would take me seriously. So when I finally did find out, I was alone in a doctor's office, and I know all I wanted to do was get in my car and drive into a tree. And I sat in my car after calling my mom, and I know that I must have sat there for about an hour and a half. Seriously contemplating ending my life, because I didn't want to be what I saw in the movies. I didn't want to be the character who gets cancer and then inevitably died, and that's what I was sure my life was going to be at that point.
And then at what point did that change? When did you think, wait a minute, maybe you can live with stage 4 cancer?
It was long after chemo, that's for sure. I'm pretty sure I was in the quick process of dying while I was doing chemo. But once I kind of emerged from that and the air kind of cleared, I really felt like I have a shot at this. And I don't know what spoke to me and told me that, but I really felt like something within me changed. And I knew I was going to live. I didn't know how, and I didn't know for how long, but I decided to make the best of it at that point. And then immunotherapy came along, and since then I've decided to no longer look at the clock on the wall, and I'm not gauging my time here in days or years. I'm just living really as anybody else without cancer lives, which is just in the moment and going.
I know. I read a really wonderful article about you too, where you talked about something I think we've alluded to many times today, about when you plan for a vacation, being able to now think, I can plan my vacation.
Oh, absolutely.
Is a kind of a life-changing thing for a lot of us. And so Ariella, I want to ask you, because you were diagnosed while you were in college with Hodgkin's lymphoma. You went through 16, is that right?
Like a dozen and
I'd say a dozen and change, because then they all start to run together after a certain point, right? Treatments before you came into immunotherapy. And all 4 of us have did it in clinical trial as well. So you had already been dealing with cancer for what, 2 years at that point?
3-ish.
3-ish. 2-ish.
2 to 3.
And then at what point did you hear stage 4? What point did stage 4 start to come into play? Because I know you were also initially diagnosed, you thought you just had a gnarly cough,
Yes.
was how you described it. And then it
was pretty gross.
And then it was, oh, this is maybe the good kind of cancer. And then it became something else. So at what point did you hear stage 4, and what did you think about that?
Yeah, as you mentioned, there was a very long transition period leading up to it getting really bad. Like for a while, it was kind of like, okay, you know, the cough, the good cancer, we still have a whole playbook to work with. We exhausted all the pieces in the playbook. Then it spread from mediastinum to the liver, and that was kind of like, that's a little not great. I was like, maybe that's not where we wanted to go with this, but there were still options. So I was always, as you know, I went through quite a few of them. I tried it all. But I always felt okay as long as my oncologist or the treatment coordinator or nurses could give me something else to try. As long as there was something else out there that I could take, someone would give to me, I felt okay. And I also wanted, redundancies, of course. I would have like multiple options, but at least one. I was like, all right, that feels better. It was only really at those moments where it seemed that there weren't very many options for me, or if I felt that, okay, by doing this one immunotherapy, will I be able to try others? Things like that were concerning. When it first initially spread, there was still hope for containment. I think they still plan to attempt to cure. They didn't ever really use the phrase stage 4 with me. And they had also, they would like to use, I don't want to say euphemisms, but yes, I think they would use, euphemistic language to speak with me. And I think at the time it made sense. I'm not sure how I would have responded to hearing that phrase exactly. It was more so after the fact, once I went from, hey, it's spread, now it's really spreading, now we're lighting up the whole PET scan, it's a whole thing, and now we're in the ICU, and now we're laid up, and we have, I have a tumor in fluid, filling up my stomach, an additional 25 pounds, and I was in tons of pain. Moments like that, it was when things got really bad, I was still very much distracted and hopeful because of the people around me, because of my friends, because of my family, because of the way everyone communicated with me. That was incredibly helpful. And also I was, at that point when things got really bad, I wasn't really in a position to research. I was barely on my computer, which is so rare for me now. But I just wasn't really in much of a position, or I didn't desire to look much of anything up.
And I want to get
really
back to that, because that's a really important point that you bring up. And Donna, you were diagnosed at stage 4 lung cancer 4 years ago. That's another one that you hear and you just think, oh, that's not the good kind of cancer. Nobody says, oh, stage 4 lung cancer. It's going to be okay. So tell me how you approached it what did you think before that, and then what do you feel now about that phrase?
When I first heard that I had, or always before, my dad died at age 49 from stage 4 lung cancer, and he lived 6 months from the time he was diagnosed. So I thought if you had stage 4 lung cancer, you died in 6 months. So that was basically what I thought. And so when I was told that I had stage 4 lung cancer, I thought probably I was gonna die pretty quick, but I was a little bit different than everybody else that I've talked to. I really didn't get depressed, and what I decided was I have 4 to 6 months to live, and I'm gonna live those 4 to 6 months.
Damn right.
So my oncologist, when he gave me the news, he goes, do you have any questions? I said, yeah, can I keep playing agility with my dogs? That was my primary question. Am I gonna be able to keep living my life? And that is exactly what I did and have done. So I never did get depressed, and I just kept right on living, and here I am, still living.
It's pretty terrific. It's amazing and so great. So I want to get back to what you were talking about how it's really hard to research when you have stage 4 cancer. And if you get a chance to go on the CRI site and see the incredible video about this woman and hearing Dr. Lisokin talk about how you were so fragile you couldn't even stand up, and it's amazing where you've been and where you've come from, and to have that experience. Cancer, as I think many of us know, it's not just the treatment that makes us feel sick, and when you have late-stage cancer in particular, your cancer can really make you feel pretty crummy. And sometimes when I hear people say, you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to do research and make sure you know what's going on, and you're like, do you get that? Like, I feel really crummy and I'm just trying not to throw up on a constant basis. I don't feel super empowered at this point. It's really hard to do. And when other people say, like, you should do research, you just feel like, that's you can quote me on. So let's talk about that, because stage 4 is different. Late stage cancer is different. You're dealing with physical symptoms that are not just related to the typical chemo stuff or treatment stuff or recovering from surgery. So how did you manage being able to do the work that you needed to do in terms of your treatment and in terms of your dialogue with your doctors? And I want to start with you because you brought it up, and then I'd like to just do a little bit with each other person, if I may.
Yeah, one of the first things I had to admit to myself was I cannot manage this by myself. I really can't now. This is like before I was like, oh, that's cute. No, you really can't. You need to delegate. Fortunately, you heard from my mom already, and my dad is also here. They really came to the rescue for a lot of this, took on a lot of logistical challenges that come from managing multiple doctor's appointments, blood work, all the tests, all the scans, asking and just letting people know, and even spreading that out and delegating to other people. Are there little micro tasks that you can give someone? Like, I need you to bring that cup of water over here right now. Like that, things like that can be invaluable. There are so many people before I got sick that I didn't realize would be invaluable to me getting better. They just needed to be asked to step up. Like, they did not know that I needed help. Once they knew, they were like, I'm here, what do you need? What can I throw at the problem? Like, I can get you the snacks. I can bring you to the doctor. I can sit with you in the waiting room. That really helps. Reaching out to the network, getting everyone else to manage me when I wasn't able to manage myself.
Mm-hmm. Really, really huge. And how about you, Donna?
I was listening to your answer. I am the most independent individual maybe you'll ever meet. And so I didn't want to be babied. And the hardest thing I think I ever did was let my husband go to the grocery store and fix a few meals when I couldn't get up. But I think for me, the thing that has help me the very most are my network of friends who treat me like I don't have cancer, and they don't baby me, and they let me live just the same as they're living, because I might be dying, but I might not be dying too. They might die before me. You never know. So I just want them to treat me the same as they treat somebody that doesn't have cancer. Because for me personally, I go through many hours a day that cancer's not the first thing on my mind. The first thing on my mind is maybe how am I going to pay that next bill, or the cancer doesn't rule my life at all.
Awesome. How about you, Stephen? How did you and your partner manage all of this? In terms of, did he step up as an advocate or a researcher for you, or?
He stepped up in a lot of ways, but that was really kind of my area, and I think that's just the way that I'm wired. When I was diagnosed, I went through a huge abdominal surgery, so I spent a lot of time on the couch, and I used that time to research what was going on inside of my body and what I could do to fight this. All I kept reading was I was going to die, and I refused to accept that. So I use that time, that downtime, really as a way to just get on my iPad and connect with other people, find these, I can't talk about cancer without saying support groups, and I know I keep saying it, but it's so important to really anyone, whether you're stage 1 or you're stage 4 or 5 or 6. But I really found what I needed through these support groups. I'd shout out a message saying, hey, this is what I'm going through, how can I fix this? And within minutes, I'd have something back, and that just encouraged me to search more and more and delve deeper into the internet to figure out what was going on and what I could do to take back the control.
Mm-hmm. So 3 completely different responses, which is great, because lucky us, all of our cancers are special snowflakes, and we get to manage them in our own ways. So Donna, tell me a little bit about how you then decided to go into immunotherapy, because a couple of us are kind of, I think you're not, but we're on the same kind of drugs, but you did it for lung cancer. So tell me about when you thought, okay, this is something I want to take a leap with, and what was the dialogue like with your doctors?
I had been on traditional chemo. It had quit working, and my doctor basically said you can go on a drug that's going to make you sicker, or you can consider a clinical trial. And so I got with the doctor my oncologist said I currently have, who I do trust him with my life. I love this man a lot. And I really didn't know I was getting on immunotherapy when I got on immunotherapy. All I knew is I was getting on a clinical trial that we were going to test. And when I got on my clinical trial, I thought I was getting ready to die. So my whole reasoning for getting on the clinical trial was altruistic. I never dreamed it was going to help me. I thought it was going to help everybody that was coming past me. So I was probably at least a year into the clinical trial before I knew it was immunotherapy. So mine was a little different from people that actually knew what they were getting into.
And at what point did you and your doctor start having conversations that this seemed to be actually keeping you alive? From the first infusion that I had, I was having CAT scans every 6 weeks, and my CAT scans have been stable since day one. So we never have really, I guess they call me their miracle patient. So I guess we've had the conversation like that, but we've never really sat down and just really conversed about the fact that it's keeping me alive. We still go CAT scan to CAT scan, but when I was first diagnosed, you don't do a magazine subscription because you don't want to waste any money because you're not going to be here long enough to read it, to now that, I make plans for 2017. That's pretty great. Yeah. And how about you? You obviously had been doing a lot of the research already, so you came pretty well armed into the dialogue, because you really had to advocate right from the beginning just to get diagnosed. So you had to get pretty fierce pretty fast.
Yeah, absolutely. And throughout all my research, even immunotherapy wasn't something that kept coming up because it's colorectal cancer, and as someone I talked to earlier, their doctor keeps telling her, it's not going to work for you because you've got colon cancer. This isn't one of your tools. So it wasn't something that jumped out at me, especially until I had a CAT scan showing that the tumor was growing, and my oncologist said, honestly, if I was you, I would jump at this chance. I really think you've got a good shot at this. And I think back to when I was first diagnosed and starting chemo, and I remember praying, just asking, I know chemo doesn't always cure, but some people it does. And there's always that 1 in a million. I just need that one shot if I can get that. And it didn't come in the form of chemo, but it came in the form of immunotherapy. Once I had the information laid out in front of me about being MSI high, about immunotherapy, about mutations, about all this stuff, it all just kind of made sense. And I knew that my ticket out of this would definitely be to start a trial. And it being a phase 1 trial was scary enough, because you think, people enter this trial and they never return. And I was afraid that was going to be me. But fortunately, that obviously wasn't the case. And I'm so glad that I had the courage to take that leap.
And how about you?
Yeah. So
after you'd exhausted exhausted. So many other options, and we're really weak at that point and really sick.
Yes. When immunotherapy, when the trial was pitched to me, I was in a hospital bed, laid up after a surgery. After one of many dozen drugs had failed, had to, also do. I also had a resection. Resection buddies, no. Not a fun process to recover from. So I'm hanging out in there, and while I'm sitting in the hospital bed, they'd done a scan of me. Then they realized that there was some activity in my liver, and mind you, I thought we had come to a point with the really gnarly chemo and everything else that we were in a good spot. We had a solid chunk of time before we had to get on to the next trial. But they're like, there's some stuff here, we're gonna test it. Maybe it's a virus, maybe it's bacterial. We don't think it's lymphoma. That would be crazy because you just got off something and things were fine. No, it was lymphoma. Ding, ding, ding. And so we had to find something really quickly because this was the fastest my cancers are growing back. And I had pretty aggressive disease. So the fact it was a matter of a few weeks, 6 weeks or so, that things are starting to spring up again, that was absolutely terrifying. My primary oncologist, Dr. Matazar, who is the man, came by my bedside and he was like, hey, take a look at this. And at that point, I had seen so many consent forms, had talked about so many different drugs, researched so many different things. I was like, and I completely trusted him. So I was like, you know what, we'll give it a shot. It's another option. I was just so grateful that there was another drug that had not exhausted my shot at and that I was still well enough to get on it. I felt incredibly lucky. And I was eligible for it. And then I got introduced to Dr. Lasokin, who is also the man.
He is, he's really
I was
awesome.
Extremely lucky to have two of, some of the greatest physicians I'm convinced ever existed, but whatever. And Dr. Lasokin's incredibly deadpan humor. My first day in, I had just gotten out of the hospital after a week and a half, 2 week stay, green, weak, as he loves to talk about, hunched over and gargoyle. But he was like, so, we're gonna give this a shot. We'll see what happens. No promises. But I really appreciated it. It was incredibly refreshing that he approached it with the same level of, not skepticism, but a healthy reservation about it. There was no pie in the sky promises. It was very much we're gonna give it a go. Let's see where this takes us. Mm-hmm. And that was my thought process as well. So we jive very well together.
Yeah, he's pretty great. He's a colleague of Dr. Wolchuk's on the immunotherapy trial, so they're all pretty great. And it seems like a big component of being able to get through this and getting into trials is having doctors who are responsive and doctors who are willing to say, let's throw out a bunch of different things and see what sticks, basically. But it's hard, and as you know from certainly your experiences, that doesn't always happen. And sometimes you have to figure out, okay, then I have to go someplace else. And how do you as consumers, because this is really important, we are all consumers and we are entitled to good service. How do you advocate for that? I really would like to hear more about what you had to do in terms of making choices about getting the kind of care you needed and being heard.
I think some of the biggest choices I had to make started really early with my first oncologist. I really felt like she was someone who was a little more distant, a little more cold. I never really felt like I didn't have to be her priority, but I'd like to at least feel like I was her priority while I was sitting in her office. She really treated me like any textbook case of colon cancer. And as it's been said on this stage many times, you need to find someone who specializes in your cancer. You can't trust someone who treats 20 different cancers when you have stage 4 lung cancer. You can't trust someone who's going after lymphoma right after you. It doesn't make sense. They can't know everything they need to know about your case. And so I think it was pretty early on, I realized she wasn't the woman for me, and I take nothing away from her because she got me far. She did, but the turning point really was the more I knew, the more I realized she wasn't treating me the right way. She was giving me drugs that, with Lynch syndrome was actually killing me faster than the cancer would have. And when I saw that, I wrote a very strongly worded email. And I never heard back.
And probably a heck of a Yelp review as well, I'm guessing. So now I'm really curious, because I struggle with this so much myself. How do you now, at this stage in your experiences of disease, what do you tell people? How do you describe yourself in the words of your cancer? What do you say? Do you say, I'm a survivor? Do you say, I have no evidence of disease, and would you like to know what that means? Do you say, I'm in remission? Do you say, I'm living with cancer? Donna, what do you tell people?
I call myself a survivor. I am not Ned. I still have... The cancer's still there, maybe. We're not even 100% sure. The radiologist calls it scars, and my doctor says, we don't know that. So I'm okay with keeping on getting those biweekly infusions. If they're going to keep me alive, I'll go for the rest of my life, obviously. I just say I'm a survivor, and I hope I keep on being able to say that for a long time to come, but not as long as I hope you guys do. Y'all are so young.
So great. Stephen, what do you tell people?
So I get asked that. I get asked, what I consider myself a lot, and I say that I'm a thriver and that I am actively in treatment and actively living, and I just kind of leave it at that. And no one ever really knows what that means, but I don't feel like I owe it, to really sit there and hash out the details.
Yeah.
I keep my diagnosis very open with everybody, but I don't feel like it defines me at this point. So I don't know. I guess I don't talk about it as much with, say, my clients at work, but in my circle of friends and my family and my community, they all know. And I'm very loud out about that. But I'm not going to tell someone in my chair, how do you want your hair colored today? By the way, I have cancer. Looks like I'm looking for a tip. So.
You know what? It would be a really good way to probably get more tips. And how about you?
I have a list of phrases I like to throw around. So I will say, I have/had cancer. Because there's still some schmutz on the scan, as Dr. Mandazar would say, there's a little bit of schmutz up in here. But it's been stable. It's hanging out. We coexist peacefully. We have been since November 2014, when I had my last infusion of nivolumab. So that is great. So I'll say things like, I'm in follow-up phase.
Yeah.
We are watching and waiting.
Yeah.
I'm in maintenance mode, I am a robot, because that's how it feels sometimes.
And I think it's so great the way that all of you define that, because when we as journalists go out into the world and I see people using the word cure and throwing around the word cure like that is the most important goal in cancer, and believe me, it's great and it's wonderful, but what's a subtler and much, much more important point to make is that more people are living longer with cancer in their bodies, and a cure is not the same as life. And the goal should be life and quality of life. So I want to ask you guys maybe one more question, and then I said I was asking them one more question. Oh, hi, oh my God, you're here. I'm sorry, I know her, that's why she was waving at me. She's not asking a question. Which is, so living sort of semi-post-cancer, I think a lot of people kind of think that if there's an end to treatment, or that there should be an end point to treatment, or there should be an end point to the cancer story. And I think especially when you've had metastatic cancer, you kind of go up into the clouds and live, on the ceiling somewhere at this fevered pitch of adrenaline that can be very traumatic and very stressful for us, but also for the people we love and for our families and for our employers to deal with and work around. So how do you manage now with a little bit of perspective and a little bit of that sense of, oh, maybe I can actually start planning vacations How do you also deal with, or maybe you don't have that occasional like, waking up in the middle of the night and still feeling that terror or that fear, or that I have a cough and suddenly now I just go straight to 100 on the anxiety meter. When do you start?
There will always be those nights where I lay in bed and I just stare at the ceiling and I wonder, what's really going on? Is this medicine going to continue? Not a day goes by that I don't think that the honeymoon phase is going to end. But at the same time, I feel like this whole diagnosis has given me a chance to live like I never have lived before, kind of like what you were saying. I always like to tell people that before my diagnosis, I really liked who I was, and after is when I truly fell in love with myself. And I just kind of try to stay true to that at this point. The fear always is there in the back of my head, but I can't let it be too loud.
That's great. And how about you?
Yeah, I transitioned from thinking one day ahead, a few days ahead, a few weeks ahead, a few months ahead, and planning the vacation, saying I'm comfortable, going on a work trip months in advance. There's still, those occasional periods of time, you have a gnarly cough comes up and you're like, wait, what's going on? But I take comfort in it. There's a few things I take comfort in. One, knowing that, I live in New York and it's in the best hospitals in the world, and my institution is here. And I can text a nurse, I can call them up, I can just show up at urgent care the instant I think something is wrong, which I've been a lot more, showing some restraint now that not everything is an emergency, which is hard to come down from. I think my skin is pink, what's going on? Real talk, but I take a lot of comfort in knowing that there are people there that I can, within an instant, get help from, should anything happen. I take comfort in knowing that we continue to focus on the research and coming up with new treatments that can support our cancers and continue to find new answers and new pathways and new ways to help people live, a proper life. The more drugs that are out there that can potentially help me and the rest of us, the more comfortable I feel. Right. So let's keep fundraising, let's keep putting in research, let's keep making that happen, let's get more options out there. Yeah. And then I can sleep easy at night.
Okay, I like that. That's awesome. Thank you. Okay. And Donna, how about you? Do you ever wake up in that cold sweat?
Yes, but not real frequently. I, like you guys, try to chase those thoughts away really quickly because they're counterproductive, in my opinion. Again, I don't concentrate. I play on a lot of websites and stuff where other people have cancer, and I'm all about trying to help them, but I don't think about my own personal cancer that much. And I guess I'm like a little Pollyanna, so I just, I know I have cancer, but just don't really live like I do, and so, I lost my train of thought, but when I do wake up at night, it's usually if a friend who has had quite a go with some kind of a treatment and then it comes back and they pass away. That's usually the time that it comes real, that any given moment might be the end of my luck. But like you said, every single day that passes, they're coming up with new research. So if you can call having cancer lucky at all, this is a lucky time to have cancer, because the researchers, you guys are awesome, and y'all are coming up with things all the time that they can try on us next. So
that's pretty cool. All right, thank you. All right, I think we have 5 minutes or so for questions. Look, I have to change my glasses because now I have to look out at you guys. All right, that gentleman in the plaid shirt seems like he's got something he's dying to say.
I am dying to say it. So thank you for sharing your experiences and your orientation to your disease and how you've managed it. You've been incredibly generous. My question comes back to the fact that immunotherapy has allowed for a growing list of people to share their near-death experiences. And you're an example. And considering that we're all mortal, and we're all dying in some way in our lives, right? I'm wondering how you've oriented to, you've reached a point maybe of an epiphany in your life when you got your diagnosis, or how you've shared how you've become, identified potentially as a survivor, but have you also identified yourself as an enlightened one? Someone that can share with us, as the rest of us kind of drone about our lives. Has life become more aware for you, more vibrant for you, more colorful in some way? And can you share with us maybe that insight if you've had it?
I'll just say, just briefly for myself, that when people talk about like, oh, so you're going to you're going to live, or like, am I going to live? It's like, yeah, but it's like that Onion headline: worldwide mortality rate holds steady at 100%. We're all going to live until we don't, and I am very much more aware of that, and I am aware of the fact that all of the time that we have is kind of borrowed.
I don't think of myself as any more enlightened than anyone else. What I do realize now, though, is that events like these, when I get to meet people who are struggling or looking for information, and when I get to share my story and my knowledge with them, and I see the effect that I then have on them, that makes me feel like this whole thing happened for a reason. And I think that if I can give someone hope, or if I can point someone in the right direction, it really makes all of this worth it.
I'm going to get another question, and then I'll get Donna and Ariella to answer that. I like striped shirt in the back because she seems near a microphone.
I think they gave it to me.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
So my question to you guys, because I was just out with the clinical trial people, and I'm eligible for 13 of them, which is fabulous, but how do you decide which one is the best one? And I don't know if you were just eligible for single ones, and you can just tell me just from your research background, but how would you go about doing that? What is some advice you can give to me? Thanks.
So yeah, as I talked about earlier, I wanted to do my cost-benefit analysis, make a little chart at different parameters that I thought were important to me. As a non-clinical person with very limited insight, only an econ background, I was throwing whatever I had at it. But a lot of it is just asking anyone who will talk to you about these drugs, and people that have immunology background, people that have an oncology background, anyone that will connect. And of course, going ultimately with what you and your provider decide. That's really the way to do it. And of course, corroborating that decision with as much research as you can with other physicians. And again, if you're not in a position mentally and emotionally to make that decision, consult with those that are close to you that can help you make that choice in order to make that easier. That's really...
I think a good idea too would to visit that site and print off the sheets for each and every trial, and at the top of the page write down what that trial targets, whether it be EGFR or the HER2 or whatever, and then look at your tumor if you've had any type of tumor testing, and look what is inside of your tumor, and if any of those match up, that would be my number one pick.
Really good advice. All right, I want to ask we're going to get one more question in, and wait, who's closest to a microphone? So that lady over there then. Yes.
So you were talking earlier about seeing what sticks. When you were undergoing a treatment or part of a clinical trial that showed signs of not working, at what point did you decide to stay in it, have hope that things will turn around eventually, or to start researching other clinical trials and maybe move on to a different one?
Did anybody here have an adverse reaction, or a sense that maybe this wasn't going to be a good fit?
Yes. So there were, I went through a lot of trials, went through a lot of different drugs where things were not working out. Sometimes there were early signals of that, whether I continued to not feel well, or I started to feel worse. There was one particular moment when things got really bad. I noticed my stomach was distended. I had this thought that the drug I was on was not working. I brought it up with the nurse, I brought it up with the physicians that were on the particular trial. I had to be very persistent about that, getting that addressed. And eventually, I think during the next follow-up visit or so, they realized that my liver was like rock hard. And they're like, wait, we should probably do a quick scan of you, an off-trial scan, because usually you have your periods of time. Did that scan. My hemoglobin also shot down right around the same time I was getting that scan done. That's when they rushed me over. We did the ICU. We did all the whole thing there. That was a clear moment when we were like, this isn't working. We need to find something else first, get well enough to get on the next drug. But during times when I felt well-ish, well is a relative term, I would like to have backups. So while I might have the one primary drug I'm on, because I'm super cautious, and again, I love to have redundancies, I might have a couple in the back of my mind that like, okay, I'm thinking about these things, I'm following them on Twitter, I'm seeing what the researchers are talking about, just in case. Even I think about that now, I'm like, there are a couple drugs out there I got my eye on. Let's see what's happening on here, see if they get approved.
Absolutely, that's great.
And only you know how you feel. Like, you're the best gauge of all of that. The doctors can look at you and say your blood work looks fine, but if you feel bad, you need to be letting them know that. And I think that it's easier for us to say as patients, I don't feel good, I don't think this is working, take a look, than them just to look at blood work and say, well, everything matches up, you're good to go, and all of a sudden you realize it's exploded everywhere.
Amazing. Thank you three so much. This is really intimate and intense stuff to talk about, and you've enlightened all of us so much. Thank you so much.
And I just want to echo that when you're involved in cancer immunology for as long as I've been, and to see 4 patients that have all really benefited from it. This is what it's all about. This is why we dedicate our lives to this. This is why the Cancer Research Institute stays around and does what we do. And I just really want to thank you. You're really inspirational to all of us. And I think anyone that is living with cancer, I think you're like heroes to me. I think being able to go on with your life and make it a part of it, but not consume you, and continue to be who you are, that's what it's all about. And I'm so happy that immunotherapy got you to that space. So thank you.
Thank you for keeping on.
So that's it. It's been a long day. I hope you've all learned something. I hope this was informative. As I said at the beginning, we will be sending around an email survey to you, an online survey. Please fill it out. We'd love to get your feedback. We want to know what worked, what didn't, what you want to hear more of, what you want to hear less of. And remember that we do have a save the date, September 23rd next year. I also want to tell you that Mary Elizabeth's books have arrived. So they're back there. If you don't have it, you should get one. She will sign them for you, so they're here. And last but not least, I want to again thank our sponsors, our presenting sponsors, Bristol Myers Squibb, and our other sponsors, Merck, GlaxoSmithKline, Genentech, and Regeneron. And thank you all for being here, and have a great Saturday night.